Away we go, everyone. Welcome in to another edition of Matchday -1. And what a big one it is. Presented by PointsBet, founding partner of Austin FC here at St. David's Performance Centre. Adrian Healey, delighted to be joined by Sonny Guadarrama, sporting a lovely white shirt.
Actually, it's cream.
Is it cream? Yeah, it's slightly off-white. But this is one we don't see too often. It's actually made by the same people that made mine, isn't it? The Ness.
The Ness. I like to be a little bit different.
Yes.
If you haven't noticed.
If you haven't seen our pre-game shows on the CW before every game, Sonny always wears just something. You always mix it up.
Let's try.
You always change
Keep
that
it
starting
fresh.
11, don't you?
That's right.
Do. So here to preview what is just a monumental game against LAFC. One I think we've been circling on the calendar for quite a while. Before we do that, let's have a little look back. We'll call it the look back and try and find some positives to draw from what we saw on Saturday night against Minnesota. Obviously, the result and the performance, not what we wanted, and certainly a dip from what we've seen in recent weeks. But Sonny, you've played this game professionally. Teams are going to have days like that, aren't they? It's inevitable.
Especially in the MLS. I think there's just the amount of games that there are. We're down probably to the last 8 games of the season. It's hard to just maintain like the same form over and over again. And I think we've seen it before. The team maybe not have played the greatest game and then turn around and play an extremely solid game. So hopefully that'll be the case this weekend. I think personally that just Minnesota had a good game plan and they were able to execute and they put up a good performance. I thought Austin FC had a good game, but I give more credit to Minnesota.
Yeah. Is it perhaps a good thing? I mean, losing is never good, but it's a good thing it happened when it did at this stage of the season. As you say, 8 games to go. I mean, better it happens now than certainly in the playoffs, or even closer to the playoffs.
It is. I think it gives you the opportunity to kind of look back, reflect, see what Minnesota was able to do well and what we were not able to do well going into playoffs, because that's a team that we could possibly be facing in the playoffs. So I think it is positive, and I think it's even better that we're playing these bigger games leading up to the postseason, because it's going to get us. We're going to be a fine, well-oiled, tuned machine. That's right.
Oiled and tuned.
And tuned. That's right.
If it's not Minnesota United, it'd be someone like Minnesota United that we're playing in the first round of the playoffs. And, in the playoffs, things get reduced sometimes to their very essence and core. And sometimes the game plan isn't particularly pretty. It's survive and move on in playoffs. So good we had a taste of a team who kind of, that's what they're all about, isn't it? There's nothing fancy about Minnesota.
No. And I think it works for them.
Yeah.
Their center backs are tough and aggressive, and they don't give a lot of spaces. I thought we didn't create a lot of chances, but I think, again, it just goes back to the way that Minnesota set themselves up. So I think it gives us a chance to look back and see then how can we create opportunities with the team that presents itself like that, because you're right, playoffs are about not making mistakes.
Right. It's a whole different ball game, isn't it? It really. They say it's a new season. It really is a new season, and so often the style of football played in the playoffs can be different. But especially now they've moved it to sudden death, one and done.
To me, it's crazy that you would play all these games leading up to just one game and it not be a home and away fixture. So I think it just adds the pressure, and I think it's going to be important that the team can look to play that game at home.
Well, you mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that the team has always bounced back this season. That's been something that's been very different in year 2 to year 1. Whenever they've lost, they've come back and had a much improved performance next game. In fact, there's only one time this season they lost consecutive games, and that was back in early May when they lost at home to the Galaxy, then went to RSL and lost. And guess what the next game after that was?
LAFC.
So let's talk about the showdown, because they went there and won. A game that wasn't so much on the national radar back then in mid-May. Austin going in there. They're still the only team to go into Banc of California Stadium and win against LAFC this year. Friday night showdown under the lights at Q2 Stadium, the rematch. Top 2 teams in the West. So much to get into, Sonny. What are your initial thoughts about the game and the task that awaits the Verde and Black?
If you grew up in Texas, you know what Friday Night Lights is. So
Yes.
I think this is just, the build-up around the game obviously for us, we've known about this game a while. I think the players, at least in the back of their minds, have known about it. I think the players that LAFC added to the team is now like adding just this bigger ball of emotion. The fact that it's a national game, the fact that we're sitting 1 and 2 in position, just makes for some entertaining soccer.
Yeah. And, we're coming off the back of the defeat. So too are they. I mean, that's the thing. We turn around having lost to Minnesota and then see LAFC lose to San Jose. Crazy, isn't it? As you say, anyone can beat anyone.
It's the MLS. Anything could happen.
So it leaves the gap at 9 points. It is first against second. There's still a thought that Austin can catch LAFC. I don't know if that's going to be upmost in their mind at this point, given the gap is 9 points. If it was 3 or 4, it might be different. But they still want to send a message, don't they? And beat the one team that's above them in the league.
And to beat them twice.
Yes.
And to not lose them. I think it, beyond the points and catching up to them, I think this Friday is more about sending a message of confidence to themselves, to the fans, and then being able to send a message out to the league that you're not going to want to play against Austin FC in the playoffs.
Is this the sort of game if you're an Austin player right now, is this the sort of game, exactly the game you want on Friday night?
You definitely want to play. You want to be in the game. You want to score, and you want to end up with the 3 points at the end of this game.
Yeah. In front of the national TV cameras, ESPN will be broadcasting. Does the May result have any sort of impact on what we're going to see? It seems to my mind, at least, Sonny, correct me if you think differently, it seems to my mind that this could be a completely different game to the one we saw at Bank of California, where Austin did actually sit back a little bit and absorb some pressure.
That's what I was going to say. I think they played a smart game.
Yeah.
Coming back, I remember that they had played, 2 games in a couple of days, and then they had to fly all the way to LA. And they put up a different game plan, and it worked because obviously no one's been able to beat LAFC at home. They set back. I don't think that they're going to want to sit back this game, but I think that they can learn from what they did do. I remember Brad Stewart having an amazing game, saving us quite a few times. And I think the team just being effective when they were in front of goal. There wasn't a lot of opportunities, but when we were there, we were effective, and I thought we created better chances than LAFC. I thought we hit the post that game as well.
Yes, we did. Fagundes
hit the post.
Yeah.
Our chances were much better, even though they were fewer, and I thought we were effective in doing that, and I thought defensively the team looked strong. So I would definitely go back and kind of review that and see that confidence, just that at the end of the game, Austin FC winning the game.
Yeah, and we all remember that heart-stopping. I mean, they were 2-0 up. Driussi with the amazing Rabona, and for Fagundes to finish 2-0 up. Then LA suddenly woke up, came storming back, got a goal, and then there was that penalty incident. Remember that with Kip Keller in the box, and it went to VAR, and we were all
worried,
holding our breath,
sweating.
But ended up being just an amazing result. Still the only team to go to Bank of California Stadium and win. So given LAFC can play many different ways, they are actually, interestingly, one of the highest pressing teams in the Western Conference, if not the highest statistically. They don't always do that. They're quite capable of sitting back. I'm interested in how LAFC approach this, because we've seen a bunch of teams recently come in to Q2 with a similar sort of game plan to try and just sit back, pick off any mistakes we make, and make the most of them. We've seen San Jose do that, Kansas City, the Red Bulls. LAFC, I don't know if they're going to take that approach. What do you think they're going to do, given how stacked they are offensively?
I think you said it, how stacked they feel.
Yeah.
I don't think that they necessarily go in with such a game plan. I think they're just confident in their players that are going to be able to create situations that are dangerous just because they have the quality.
Yeah.
And then the people that are on the bench. So I think at least if you're on the field on LAFC, you know that time's ticking, so you have to put up a good performance because you know that the players coming in can also do the same exact thing or can be even more dangerous than the starting players.
Yeah. And the big players could very well decide this game. Of course, Sebastian Driussi will be front and center for Austin. We shall see if Emiliano Rigoni plays any part. We can get into that in a little bit. On the LAFC side of things, Bale and Chiellini haven't started. Bale not at all, Chiellini not much. They've been coming off the bench. Every chance that will continue, or maybe they'll surprise us and throw Bale out there for the first time.
I mean, it's hard to make changes when your team is that successful, but I think the times that I mean, for Chiellini, it's a little bit different because he's a defender, but I think the times that Bale has come on, I think just his presence on the field kind of changes the game. So I'm interested to see how our fans, I think we have the best fans. I think that goal that Drusy scored to win the game 4-3, it was the loudest goal I think that I've presently been in the stadium to hear. Kind of react to what he brings as just a player on the field. So it'll be interesting.
In your eyes, are LAFC as dependent on Carlos Vela as they once were? Because they've got they've got Arango, they've got a Poku, Cifuentes, Acosta.
I think they have like a really stellar team, but at the end of the day, Carlos Vela is like a Drusy.
Yeah,
you have to watch him every second of the game because he might just roam around for 89 minutes, and the 1 minute that you let him free, he makes you pay for it.
Yeah. My goodness, Friday night is going to be rocking. I hope you've got your tickets. Sonny, it has been a hard ticket to get. Not even the Guadarrama millions can get you too many tickets for this game.
The influences, I'm going to have to use all my influences to get the tickets for this one.
But you've seen what the prices are like on the secondary market. I mean, $270 seems to be the starting point for tickets on Friday night.
I think it'll be worth it, though.
Yeah, it's going to be electric, isn't it?
It's going to be electric.
You were talking about the last game against Kansas City being, I think you're right. I think it was the loudest we've ever heard the stadium, and I can only imagine what Friday night's going to be like, especially if it's like an exhilarating game and Austin playing
back and forth.
The crowd are going to be totally into it. Cannot wait. So let's talk a little bit about the new arrival, Rigoni. We saw his unveiling at the stadium actually on Monday, which is great to see, and he's been training with the team. I mean, God, he gets in after a 18-hour flight from Buenos Aires on Sunday morning. The fans are there to greet him at the Fairmont, and then he's straight into training the next morning. And so he's had a week. Is that enough? I mean, from your perspective as a former pro, when you're coming into a new team, there's a certain rhythm you have to try and sort of sink in with, isn't there? And not to mention match fitness if he hasn't played for a while.
The only problem I see is time.
Yeah.
There's only 8 games left in the season. I would try to get him onto the field as fast as I can, knowing his quality and what he could bring to the table, because it's going to take about 8 games for him to start gelling offensively, defensively, even though I think he's got a head start since he's already has a relationship with Drusy, which is the man who runs the show on this team. I think that's a great start, but he's just going to need, I think the MLS is just a different league. Every player is just a great athlete, and they run and they hit harder.
Yeah.
The game's a little bit faster. So it's going to take him some time. I think the sooner we can get him onto the field, the better we have of him actually showing. Because I think Sebastian Drusy, if last year he wasn't as good as he is this year, and I think it was just a matter of time of him just getting used to his teammates, getting used to the league. I don't see this being any different, so I hope that we can see him on the field sooner than later.
Yeah. So the question is, does Josh will put him on the bench this Friday? That's what everyone's asking all week.
I would.
You would? You'd have him on, even at say 80-85% match fitness.
Put him on for 10 minutes,
especially if you're only asking him to play a few minutes at the end. Yeah.
And I think he would want to play.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much he knows about the MLS, but you can just look at the standings, and I'm sure he knows a couple of names on the LAFC lineup. So as a player, you would want to play against the biggest team, and no better way than to have your debut, score a goal.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. But not expecting too many other changes. I mean, it's actually interesting. If you think back to the game at Bank of California Stadium, who started in that game? Johan Valencia. I remember. I'm not saying he's got to start Friday night, but he played a big part in the opening goal. He won the ball and played in Gabrielson, didn't he? But
he's just a different type of holding mid that we don't have.
Right.
Well, that we do have because he's on the team, but I'm saying from normally what starts, I think he's just a different type of holding mid, and I think each game presents itself with opportunities, and there's players that fit a certain game, and there's players that aren't maybe suited best for those type of games.
Yeah. So much fascination around this game, and it's it's a club who, if we have genuine desires on going deep into the in the postseason, it's a club you're going to be meeting again in the postseason, because they, in all likelihood, will be the number one seed. We may still have something to say about that, but all paths will run through LA to
We'd have
MLS
to
Cup.
beat them. Yeah.
To find a way. And what a feather in the cap that would be, to beat them home and away in the same season. At this stage in the show, we often do the Lahoud mood on your Spanish broadcast with Roger Valdivieso. Same thing is called Sonny's Sentimiento, or Sonny's Disposition, to give Spencer Smallwood, our producer, his due. You can go in either direction. What's your... Do you have a Sonny disposition heading into this game? What's your sentimiento?
The first thing I would say is the nerves of the game, just being able to deal with it. With all that we've talked about, the players obviously know that, the coaching staff knows that, even the fans, I think, are a little, probably more excited about this game. So I think there's just going to be this atmosphere that is going to feel even a little bit more different than what we normally have. On the field, I think the most important piece of this, in Spanish, we call it marca en ataque, which basically means that when you have the ball, how can you be almost counterproof defensively? So you're already thinking about it, not that you want to give the ball away, but you want to be in the best possible position defensively. So if you lose this ball, you're going to be able to counter whatever they present itself. With the type of players LAFC have, you're going to definitely want to be keeping an eye on how you position yourself, even though you have the ball, just in case we lose the ball.
Yeah. I do think we get a break, by the way, and didn't mention this earlier, but Ilie Sanchez has been huge for them as part of their midfield three. Not available Friday night because he got sent off.
That helps.
San Jose.
But then you look at their bench and you're like, okay, well, if it's not him, it's somebody else that comes in.
Probably Latif Blessing. He's really. I know you and I both really like him, so that's great. We will start to wrap things up with a moment of gratitude. We've talked a lot about worked for Liverpool once upon a time. Also worked in this league with Columbus. Has a network around the world. Is always traveling to see players, and I think responsible for the Driussi recruitment and the Gabrielson recruitment, and now very much Rigoni too. So shout out to Manuel.
He deserves definitely a shout out, especially with the Driussi. I think he's the best player that's came into the league this season.
Yeah. And he's a genuinely interesting guy. Always a lovely guy to talk about soccer with. Always watching games from around the world. I know you've seen scouts in action. It's a game of opinions.
Yes,
and
sometimes we don't always see it the same way, and some people see this player and they have great things to say about him, and other players or other people have an opinion about that player, and maybe it's not the same. But definitely, at least the players that he's brought in, 10 points.
Yeah. I think that's why we love this sport so much. It is a game of opinion. I think much more so than any other sport, it's open to interpretation.
It is.
And,
I'll never get bored of it.
And players, great players don't fit in some places, and we've seen that, haven't we? So finding the right player to fit into a system and philosophy is
it's an artwork.
It's an art, isn't it? It's not a science at all. So great work, Manuel. Keep it going. Thank you for being here today, Sonny, because I know you have had a crazy busy week. Just tell us briefly what because you are now involved in a school that you're running, which opened its doors this week. You got 60 kids in Austin under your stewardship now.
SG Academy, which stands for, if it's not too hard to tell, but Sonny Guadarrama Academy. But it's a school where kids can go to and get an education, but the best part about it is that we're able to train every single day. And I think the kids, for me at least this week that we started school, is just the fact that the kids come to school with a smile on their face. They're excited to come to school. I personally can't remember if I was that excited to be at the schools that I was as a kid. So I'm excited, and I know that this is gonna do great things for the city of Austin.
I think if I knew I was going to play soccer at school and I was going to be coached by Sonny Guadarrama, I'd have a big smile on my face.
Well, we want you at our school then.
No, but great stuff. Really, really good work with the school. Best of luck with the SG Academy, and thanks for stepping away, Teach, for the day. And enjoy the game on Friday night. You and Roger will be calling it on Spanish radio. Michael and I have the night off because it's on ESPN. 7 p.m. local start time. Remember, slightly earlier start Friday night, and look forward to seeing you all there at Q2 Stadium. I'll be there in the stands with the rest of you.